Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Davis wants the ball again. Here's Black off the fake, takes it, slams it! And what a dunk! Wow!
We're all knotted at 74. Government quickly the other way.
Better guard Johnson. Find him.
Betts looking for help. Fading away.
Oh, my goodness.
Justin Betts with .4 left. Puts Bellarmine on top. The full court heave is turned aside. And Justin Betts hits the biggest shot of his life.
Absolutely incredible, Matt. I told you we highlighted him. The kid is so tough. He never quits. Right down to the last second.
Yeah, I can promise you they're going to be dialed in. I know that for a fact. And again, those first 5 minutes are going to be very important tomorrow night. That's why you talk about the emotions of senior night. A lot of times you come out a little flat. That can't happen tomorrow night because I know they're going to be juiced up early in this game.
DB, tell me small town basketball programs, small D1, D2, D3 programs don't have the best broadcasters.
They do.
By far.
They do.
They are the guys that are so into the game that they don't understand the level from 1 to 10. Like if you get if we talked to Kevin Kugler and he was building up for a call, he would say, don't go to your 8 mark before halftime, right? You get to 8 with 5 minutes to go, and then if you're really building so you have room for a 9 or 10 if a big shot comes.
Yeah.
But if you watch a small town game, if you watch it, whether it's high school, whether it's college,
I watched 4 last night.
Right? You get 10 from the rip.
I know
it may not be the best broadcasting, but boy, it's a heck of a lot of fun listening to somebody like that.
It's exciting. Hey, so here's the deal. Let me ask you something. I don't even know why you started with this, by the way. Good morning. Should we be bothered on and high school is tough, and I think it's because I remember getting an email, and I think 07 or 08 over the mispronunciation of a kid from House Dodge during the broadcast, right?
Smith,
and it it was pronounced such and such, and I remember at York it was Simon Odie versus Simon Odie. So there's just a couple of times that I can remember making sure you have the correct pronunciation of a high school kid,
which is
and
a must.
And Larry and I and Rich Broders, whoever was doing the PA, we would always confer it was a big deal, right? You get the rosters early, a couple of days in advance. because you don't want to make people
You
upset.
study that pronunciation sheet.
It's disrespectful, right?
Mhm.
Like you want to get it
Well,
right.
and you want to get it right just for you.
Man, last night I heard about 3 names over and over and over again that were pronounced incorrectly. And I'm like, should I let it go? Should I get over it? We ended up turning it down because, I mean, Kayla, we had like 3 devices going because with all the broadcasts on YouTube, you can always put that on regular TVs.
Mhm.
Then you got the laptop, then you got the phone. I mean, so we were rolling. Like we were real time. We started off by watching Central City. Then I think we had Millard North going at the same time, and what we pop into Gretna was late, so that one was a little later, so that helped. But should that bug me, or do I give grace? Like, be honest.
Well, it bugs me.
Okay.
So, and I think it bugs us because we do that job.
Yeah.
And so
Maybe that's it.
You put in that effort, but also at the same time, you know the person. Or if it's a family member, you don't want them calling you by the wrong last name.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine somebody
Benign?
calling you Beaning
Yeah. Or Damien.
or Damien? Like,
Yeah,
it's like, but that's not me.
No, I
Like,
understand. I understand.
and so I think a lot of people have issue with it.
But aren't they? They're students, though, right?
They are, yeah. High
And
school
there's some
broadcasts, they are.
fantastic broadcasts.
And I'm not knocking a student for having the wrong. I've done that before too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to say I was perfect from the start.
I think I probably spent 2 drives maybe from York saying Odie and not Adi. He ended up going to Nebraska too, and I was like, "Oh, fudge, man, he's killing these guys with a broken, busted elbow." I just don't forget things like that. This game was literally like 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember like it was yesterday because it was actually Baylor Sharman's aunt or his cousin text me and was like, "Hey, it's pronounced this, not that." And she could just go to the hotline because she and I are friends. Like everybody knows everybody, right? If you don't know, you just ask. Like I'm just having a conversation. I just figured out that Brendan Clemens was our guy's nephew, and I was like, "Wait, what? Hey, you're related to Brendan?" But anyway, I rapidly go down a buddy hole. But I just stuff like that kind of bugs me because I think you feel like you did the kid a disservice.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've heard Oddbody. I've heard
Hey, so can I so I better ask Chad, but we've played with him since he's been in the 2nd grade. It's Oddbody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is that so hard?
Well, it's because longer names that could sound like something else always gets pronounced that way.
I love our PA guy at the high school. They have this thing, my buddy. So he always
That's
says
you.
my buddy Tate, like on a basket, and he's super creative. Like I was talking with the Dotzlers during the Bellevue West Side game, and remember I told you I had to decompress, so I went and sat
You
with
sat
the,
with your
the
therapist.
opposing parents. Yeah, my therapist. I was talking to her. I can't even remember what we were talking about, and Tawny, his wife, was like, I kind of like your PA guy. Like he gives a little spunk. I mean, it's kind of cool, but for whatever the reason, in multiple gyms, his name is one that's almost never pronounced correctly. I just called him Little Man Tate because it was a movie, or I called him Big T.O. or Little T.O. because his brother Tyson is a little bigger than him, even though Tate's older. But shoot, man, those guys got a big one tonight. I love this time of year, just because for the most part, and I'll let you hammer it because I don't know how you feel. For the most part, it's win and be in, right?
Well, that's what's confusing to me.
I know it drives people crazy. We've had this conversation for as long as I've been doing this. So like 05, okay, about wild cards. And
I would have been 8.
So I get it. People feel certain ways about it. But for me, it's a great time of the season. I remember I was telling you a story off air quickly. I didn't get a chance to get into it. I remember my daughter's team at Millard North. They were upset in the districts. And so they waited a couple of, they had to wait to see if they would get in because where would the wild card slide?
And where were they at the time?
Man, this was a couple years ago, so I want to say they were the 5. They were a 5, maybe.
Oh, so they
They
were
had to
holding
sweat
their
out
breath.
A1 through 4, and I don't know if they played on a Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember. And turns out they didn't. Did they or didn't they? I should know. Point of it is sometimes you just have to wait it out.
Mhm.
And I made the mistake of tweeting last night. I just was fudge, man. Anyway, I said, because we were watching, Prep and Gretna, and Prep was down. Prep was down 8 with like 6 to play, and I'm like, oh shoot, this game is
And
low.
Gretna was down early in that
Hey,
game.
Prep is gonna have to make up the differential of 8 was like 25% of their total points scored at that time. Right, at 32 points. I was like, how are they going to
Both
make
pretty
it?
low scoring games.
I was like, how are they going to make up 8 points in 6 minutes? And so my dumb butt tweeted, I was like, hey, wild card may be in play here.
Hey.
Prep has to hope that Gretna hangs on, because at that point, Gretna was up 1. It was 28-27. Right, in the third quarter, which was a grudger.
It wasn't in the first.
And sure enough, and then Gretna went up 5, and I thought like 5 was going to be almost the way that game was going without North Star's ability to shoot the basketball from distance. 5 seemed like a big lead in the second half, and Gat hit a 3 from the top of the key to tie it, and I was like, oh boy, we got us a ball game here. And you could just tell. I've been in that gym multiple times. I know how it gets. It's loud, it's packed, it's an electric environment.
And when Gretna made a shot, your TV was shaking.
The place was just going ham, right? But how about the Navigators, like, traveling well? Like, they represented. And once they got the win, I was like, I'm immediately getting on the phone with my buddy, and I was like, hey, we got to figure this out. Because in my head, and he was already watching a game. He was at a game because Bellevue West played. And I'm like, wait a minute. If Gretna loses, are they locked into the 3? And I'm saying it out loud, and Caleb's looking at me like, how does that happen? I didn't feel like explaining the whole wild card thing because he doesn't, like, that's not even on his radar.
Right. You don't pay attention to that. You pay attention to winning.
Yep. So I was voice texting, and people are just looking at me like, wait a minute, are you playing for the 7? Are you going to jump to the 5? Are you the 3? What half of the bracket? And you just see the eye rolls. Mike is like, ugh, I told you such and such was gonna win. I told you such and such was gonna win. I was like, oh yeah,
such a response right
well,
there.
how about that? You better call Coach Ludke, because I bet he's pissed right now because you said he was the best coach in the state.
I'm sure he'd love to hear from you right now too.
Mike is like, look how far he got with that roster. He's still the man. It's like, oh gee. Oh, God bless my family. But anyway,
it's like every greatest of all time argument. Like, well, hear me out.
Dude, he just
look at this, and that's why he did.
I'm telling you, he just thinks. I think I know what it is though. I think he embraces Coach Ludke because he coaches how he would want to be coached. He's gonna get in you. He's going to talk to you a little bit. I mean, it's how his coach coaches him. But anyway, so trying to figure out where things go at the end of the day, man, it's easy. Just win. Because I can hear you now. How do you feel about not winning and still playing another game at this point in the season?
Yeah, I didn't know it was double elimination.
Here we go.
No, so I told you I didn't grow up with the wild card.
Yeah.
So in St. Louis, it's you either kept winning, or if you lost, you're done. Your season's over. Is it a cool idea? Because like as much as I like structure, right? I like my my upbringing, like how I like things a certain way. That's yeah. Here we go.
Yes, you do.
I don't hate the idea of the wild card. What I would say about the wild card, though, that kind of confuses me, and maybe it sparked the confused look on CB's face last night, was when you said, can Gretna still be the 3? If you're the wild card, why are you still a high seed? If you're the wild card, you should bounce to the bottom of the list, and you should get in as the 8 or the 7. It should not be, hey, guess what? You still get to play a team that may not be as good as you down this way.
Okay, let me ask you something. Because they reseed after districts. So, the points will matter. Like
Sure.
I was telling you, like if Papio South beat North in the opening round of districts, their wild card points dropped a little because it's a tier 3 win. North wouldn't have had a winning record, so you don't get as many points for the win.
Right. It's like the pairwise.
That's a great analogy. Great analogy, right? It's kind of like you get rewarded for strength of schedule. So even if look at Gretna's wild card points, because of the schedule they played, like they're good. Oh, they have.
Oh, and there's no doubt that
they had like over 45 points, right? No, I don't mean good as in quality. I meant like
in regards to their points.
Yeah, like their regular season should matter. So I actually think, to be honest,
46.
That's a ton.
48 is Bellevue West.
They played a murderer's row schedule. 46 is a ton of wild card points because the regular season matters. And if you rewind, remember how everybody was mad at us at Westside football for being the 1 seed, even though we had the 1 loss, and there were undefeated teams that were seated behind us? Look at our schedule, right? 6 of the 9 teams we played were in the playoffs.
And that makes sense.
7 of the 9 teams we played should have been in the playoffs, right? So the regular season has to matter for something. Now, you can debate. I don't know how you would do it, because on the girls' side, when Lincoln Southwest upset Bellevue West to win, I mean, I think they got in at like 14-10 or something like that. Now, they were the 8th seed, even though they were playing in, I believe, A5 was their district. So you go by the number associated. So A1, you're obviously the 1 seed. A2, and it should get progressively more difficult the lower you get, right? Because it's serpentine by points.
Sure.
Right. So A7 should be the toughest to figure out. A6 should be the next toughest to figure out.
A7 was, what a game that was.
Oh, I know.
As you said, with Elkhorn South pulling that one out.
Dude, I'm telling you, in the more I'm around this, I'm a product of my environment. I just told this to Coach Roulette. I just was thinking this last night. Stop. So,
sorry. Not really.
I'm a total product of my environment, right? Like, and I have watched these young men and women just play a certain way. And I've seen super talented people not really accomplish what they're supposed to sometimes versus people that really maximize. And so I lean towards the maximizer. Like, that's how I feel about Alec Noonan. I'm not going to get on the Noonan soapbox just because I gave him some love on social media right after we played them, and people thought I was crazy because they had just played Westside. So why would you acknowledge? I'm like, listen, man, my job. I did this
talent
job.
Recognizes talent.
I did this job before I was a parent, right? I still could love my kids and my school where I coach, but that's one thing about me,
You
right?
can go sit with the other team if you'd
And
like during
plus,
the game.
AR, like, how much time have I spent like propping up other people's kids? Right? I talk about other people's kids all the time. I barely ever
95% of your life you probably
I barely ever give my kid any public praise, so he's used to it. Right? So, but anyway, so back
that's why he snaps at you on social media and says,
you know
hey,
what?
Dad, give me a car.
That's probably some of it. Right? Like, I call hey, he's the best this in the state. He's the best this in the state. Or, oh man, two-way, or she can do that. And I'm not afraid to use superlatives.
Yeah, but your kids don't need social media to get
I never, and I just, sometimes I wonder, like, do they resent me? Right? It's like, I don't know, maybe they do. Right? And what I wanted to tell him was, listen, I chuckle. I just told one of the guys from the recruiting sites yesterday, I said, it's laughable that right now, according to offers and rankings, he's the number 6 player in the state. He's like, started as 2, he's like dropped to 6 for whatever the reason. And I said, there's not one coach, not even the one on Highway and 370, not one coach that's played Coach Watch that wouldn't take him first if you had to start a team tomorrow. He's the best two-way player in the state. And when you factor in special teams, it's a wrap.
Mm-hmm.
Not even their own coach. Who would you take first? Well, I'm taking Caleb. So, like, I get that, and I just keep moving on, even though it
makes you feel
something to me. But Alec Noonan, he's such a grinder. That team with Warner and Hornbacher, like, we talked to you fell in love with their coach because he's your age. You're like, oh, Sunbrenner, man.
I fall in love with a lot of coaches because they're my age.
Like, but that's how they play.
I was so hoping to meet Garrett McGuire over the weekend too.
And I know, and our buddy we got one of our mutual friends that listens to the show. He was so mad at the officiating last night. And listen,
hold on.
You're mad.
Hey Shane, it's your guy, so don't tease him because he's liable to call you. He was so mad at the officiating in the Papio South.
Should we hang it up on the wall?
No. No. Why are you just carrying that around?
I just been in the backpack since last week.
So everybody, so you fast forward and you're watching the seeds. Once Gretna was in trouble, most of those other teams were playing, so they're not. But I guarantee you, coaches know the wiggle room going into a game. Okay, they're looking at Bellevue West and they're like, Bellevue West is not losing. They're in. So then you get to A2, A3, and it's like, God, could they?
And Lincoln schools came to play yesterday.
Hey, they balled. They balled. Now, and they got a chance. So if Lincoln High wins tonight, they'll have 4, right? Because East is in, North Star is in, and Southeast is in. So Lincoln High would make 4.
Mm-hmm.
Could I just say that out loud for a second? For as maligned as Lincoln is in terms of their athletic prowess, because they have been maligned, playing for state titles, this, that, and the other, they could have half the field,
which is rare.
Half the field. And it's like, well, I mean, OBS won't have a representative for the first time since 71. We talked about that with Sauter, and I understand that. There's a lot of reasons for that. And it's been replaced by Lincoln having the opportunity to have half the field. That's a huge win for North Star.
It's a huge win for the state.
You think?
Yeah. Like
it's fine. I don't look at it like that.
It's a cool spread, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you're taking 2 huge populations and you're piling them into one building, opposed to just taking one set.
Yeah.
And driving them.
I hear you.
To Lincoln.
The capital city being well represented. Let's hope just not tonight though. So they're basically playing for the 5. And as a coach, you just want to win and move on. But you do know you've gone from the right half of the bracket to the left half of the bracket, which puts you on Bellevue West side of the bracket. If these coaches they're not being honest with you, if they tell you they don't want to see Bellevue West until the very end, if they have to, if you're going to pencil Bellevue West in, right? So the 5 tonight, whoever wins is the 5. They get East, Lincoln East, and in the next round, that's why. But in Lincoln, anything can happen.
Right.
Anything can happen. I watched Central City last night early as Nebraska announced that a couple weeks ago, they're volleyball, they're playing in that Bison Dome. How sweet is that building?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the bomb shelter with where they play their home games, like that.
Bomb shelter.
That's what it
I
is.
know.
That's what I got.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I'm
sweet.
like, hey, go Zickmans, right? It's, but I love this time of year. Girls get started tomorrow. You know, I'll leave here. I'm like, shoot, they play at 6, but I kind of want to see the Bell East, Bellevue West girls too, because I think that's going to be fantastic. I don't know, man. I just think this time of year, but going back to the wild card, I get it, right? But I think I've grown up. I've been around it so much, it doesn't bother me because I think the regular season should still mean something.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But see, that's what you're prone to. Like for me, that's the regular season really didn't matter. And I went to a school that our regular season was brutal. So when you got to your district, when you got to the playoffs, if you win 2 games, you're just keep moving. Like soccer in particular, oh man, we went up to the quarterfinals like that, and we were probably a 500 team.
Congratulations to the 7 or 8 that are represented.
We will set up the show next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Yeah, it's special, and it honestly is one of the reasons Sam Griesel was attracted to this particular situation. It's the opportunity to play with Derek Walker, and you see the chemistry that those guys have on the floor. What you don't see a lot is their off-court chemistry, and those guys are tight. They talk a lot. When they come up into the office, they talk about what they need to do specifically to help keep our team on the right track. And it's pretty cool, to have those meetings and to hear them talk about it, as opposed to me saying, hey, you need to do this. You have to do this to keep us on track. It comes from them a lot. And I know I've talked about this. You're probably getting sick of me hearing it, but when you have the leadership from a player's standpoint, it just makes our life and our job so much easier. And you can see it in the huddles. It's why, it's hard to come back from 17 on Wisconsin. It's hard to come back from 8 down on arguably the hottest team in our league right now in Maryland. And you have to have good leadership on the floor to keep things poised. We get 4 timeouts. We don't get 10 of them. So they have to fix it on their own. And they've done that a lot. And that's because of the leadership of those senior players, most specifically Sam and Derek, since Emmanuel's been off the floor.
Welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved, it's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Let's set up the show. You just heard from head coach Fred Hoiberg as he sets the stage for senior night tonight at PBA, tip-off at 8 o'clock. We will get into how much veteran leadership has paved the way for recent success at Nebraska here in a few moments. But before we get there, let's tell you what you're going to hear the rest of the way. Brandon Vogel at 7:45. He's coming up next, as he does every Tuesday. We'll talk about the biggest storyline for each Big Ten team entering spring practice right at the top of the hour, because with recent rankings that have come out about Big Ten quarterbacks, with everything that kind of compiled on top of one another this offseason in the Big Ten, there's just a lot to kind of sort out. And so we'll put each in their respective laundry basket and tell you how they clean things up in the Big Ten. As well, we go and talk MLB pace of play here on the show today, because I have a few thoughts on that. Even though, for me, DB, it's one of those things where I'm blinded a little bit, because I don't know if it needs a lot of change, but I'm not saying the change can't be good either.
Blinded by the light.
That too. We'll do our roster review as we do every week. Talk to Joelle Lorenzi at 9 o'clock. Play Take It or Leave It at 9:30, and then talk to Kyle Austin at 9:45. Before we get
a song.
Before we
I hate when he does that. It drives me up the wall. That's I'm going to say this and I'm going to move on, Shane. You can pick sides in this whole deal.
What did I do? I didn't do anything.
You can be anti-DB or you can be anti-AR. You cannot be a waffler. If you're going to just cut up my ridiculousness, I don't know if we can hang out. I'm just going to put that out there.
Do I need to be careful?
I really got to be careful on what I say about that. So
I think he only has one clip of me.
Hey, I just did that the other day, didn't I? The Howie, the collide.
Yeah. I remember you singing it.
I went, dude. I can't even believe how ridiculous it is sometimes.
Collide. It's a song.
You
is
and
it?
I collide. Do, 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 do. Oh, that's funny. Oh, funny man. Do you know how much T-Mose is like, let me rage tweet in peace, please?
Did you do the two?
Yeah. And I don't even like being that guy either. I just did it because I think he could laugh. But he could have had two of his kiddos playing at State. I hope to have two playing at State, because if Papio South would have made it, they'd have been right there with Springfield.
You're pretty close.
I know.
Knocking on the door.
Will Maya have scoreboard? She wouldn't rub it in. That would be really, really, really foul. Hey,
some basketball terms there.
Want me
scoreboard and foul.
You want me to tell you what PBA is like?
Caleb, it's not as cool as you think.
Caleb, look at her like, yeah, I remember we got beat by Prep last year. Okay. But can I just tell you how that warmed the cockles of my heart to hear? Because we talked about this with Sam yesterday when I read Amy's article. I was like, that whole article like tilted my world momentarily. Right. And I talked about it ad nauseum. Just the leadership, 25 years old, 658 days. And he talked about Sam. Right. I said, all those guys have a story to tell. And it revolves around resolve. Just to hear him go there yesterday, I was like, yeah, Coach Hoiberg. Yeah. Player led leadership. Perseverance, yeah, because I'm like 60, right? It's just those are the things that I like, that I gravitate towards, man. Just hang in there longer than the next person. I guarantee you, they'll quit first. You just have to train in such a way where time doesn't matter. That's it.
A player-led team ensures that the team's culture will be strengthened and reinforced when you're not around, and that's what Sam Griesel and Derek Walker have been able to establish this year, at least midway through the season, really pick up on, grab some leg in regards to Hoiberg not having to babysit these guys. Like, these are guys that are in his office breaking down film with him, talking about, different forms of offense that they can run to be successful against the opponent at hand.
He said we only get 4 timeouts. We don't get 10. Can you imagine?
I'd use 10 just to keep my guys fresh if I didn't like my bench.
People aren't going to like who said this quote, but I couldn't agree more with it.
Oh, here we go.
Bad teams, no one leads. Average teams, coaches lead. But elite teams, players lead.
That would be, is that Peach?
That is.
Is that Coach Fleck?
That is Coach Fleck.
I get it. I mean, again, and you heard me say this to Ron Johnson yesterday on his podcast. It doesn't matter what people outside the walls believe. It only matters what people in the building believe. Sometimes your message isn't for everyone. You have a specific intended target audience. And if it resonates with them, then you're okay. Coach Rule can't tell everybody, hey, man, no phones at the table. Okay? I want you to make eye contact, and I want you to get to know your brothers, okay? That may not play some places. If it's going to play here, and if it doesn't, you'll probably find yourself with something different to do, right? So it doesn't matter how we critique it or we receive it. It just matters if the players are all in.
Right.
And I think that's when Coach, so he's grown. I don't know if he's grown. I don't want to make like a sweeping generalization. It seems like Coach Hoiberg has like grown in his profession too, even with all the successes pre-coming here. It still seems like, he's continuing to kind of be, I don't know, validated is the word, but like reinforce that he's moving in the right direction as his evolution has grown too. Because now he's realizing And maybe he did before, but now it's playing out before his eyes. It's not always about having good players and plug and play. Sometimes it's about what can we rest in when it hits the wall.
There hasn't been a time,
or the fan,
not even this during this 4-game winning stretch, but even in the second half of the season, that Hoiberg felt exhausted because the team was playing different sheet music than him.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a time. And that's because senior leadership of Griesel and Walker align with Hoiberg's team values and philosophy, which is trickled down to the replacements. It's not often you see a team go 7-8 deep, and with the schedule of difficulty and all the injuries, that the Huskers, in this case, are an above 500 team.
Yeah.
It's not often that you see that when you have to go that deep into the bench.
Hey, did you catch yesterday, speaking of which, when we were talking with Robbie, which, by the way, it's a good segment. I could have gone on another 15,
really
20
good
minutes.
Conversation with him.
But, he said, and sometimes it's just his delivery, but he was like, hey, we were asking the compare and contrast about the feelings and the sentiment of both programs. And he said, hey, I mean, if your thing is like to be above 500, then okay. And immediately, you know what I thought of? Can expectations be fluid? Can they change can they be Mike Riley, Nebraska led after you start 8-0? Because we certainly didn't think much of that season pre them going 8-0, but boy, did we have some concerns after, right? So can expectations be fluid? Because in the same vein, how are you going to view Creighton season if you don't get to where your goals were to start?
Is it a loss if you don't get to the Final Four, Elite Eight? That's what people were talking about. We'll talk to Brandon Vogel next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to the show. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, 590 ESPN Omaha. Live on Twitter, live on YouTube. We're happy to have you with us. If you are either streaming at home or on your television or you're listening in your vehicle right now, we appreciate your time, and we hope you enjoy this next segment as we bring in Brandon Vogel. Brandon is our guy at Hail Varsity, managing editor for Hail Varsity. And if you want to get a subscription to Hail Varsity, you can use that promo code DB or that promo code AR monthly and get some deals, get some perks, and be a part of that great team as well. Brandon, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, B Vogues. Hey, we were just talking before the break, and I used, because we had this conversation yesterday, and one of the poll questions we wanted to talk about was comparing and how you feel about your respective programs. We were using Creighton and Nebraska. And I think the obvious answer would have been like, oh, you feel better about Nebraska for, multitude of reasons. But I said, maybe it's not that easy. Maybe it's, are you prolonging the inevitable if you're a Nebraska basketball fan, right? Are you just riding the good ride knowing that it could come to a halt rather quickly? And if you're Creighton, maybe it's, you've got the 2 in a row, but you still have the opportunity to get going for a long run in March. And it just got me thinking. And I go back to Riley's 8-0 start and how we feel about Nebraska basketball versus Tim Miles being in a much better position later in the season and him not keeping his job, right? So I asked the question, is it okay when expectations are fluid given the course of how a season plays out?
Yeah, I think it's definitely okay. We kind of, I think, touched on this a little bit last week. Like, Nebraska basketball is an interesting case. They kind of exist a little bit like at the start of the year. I think it would have been a fair expectation for, okay, Nebraska needs to show progress in this season under Fred Hoiberg. Otherwise, we kind of look at the numbers and the numbers are what they are. Well, at this point, they've already exceeded all previous win totals. They've shown the progress through some difficult circumstances. And you've won 4 straight. You've got a super interesting game tonight against the Michigan State program, which, Michigan State's basketball tradition speaks for itself. But that connection between Izzo and Hoiberg always, I think, adds a little extra to this one for me. But, the key thing for me, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, whatever, is trying to look at how sustainable, a program is built. It's interesting that you referenced Mike Riley starting 8-0. All of a sudden, Nebraska's in the college football playoff rankings for a week. And, that was a season where, hey, you'll take it 10 times out of 10, but you could kind of see, like, I don't know if this is a 8-0 good team at that point. So that's going to be tough. It's going to be, something to parse, I think, in the offseason. Nebraska is going to have to make another good amount of roster moves, I think, to continue to build off this. But they've at least given themselves the right to do that at this point.
Nebraska so close to touching an NIT berth, and it's not even funny. Well, I guess it is kind of funny to see where they once were to where they have now come. But it's been more passion than it's been more humor. And, is that all the state can expect, though, out of this group? With Michigan State on deck tonight for senior night, and then you follow that up with Iowa, and you go into the Big Ten tournament, is it obnoxious to think Nebraska may have more on their plate or can go for seconds, as if they win some Big Ten tournament games, maybe find their way into the big bracket?
I mean, I haven't let myself entertain that too much at this point, but it's not crazy. I mean, with the way that they're playing at home, and oh, by the way, went on the road and beat a pretty good Rutgers team in that mix as well over this current kind of 4-game home winning streak. Tonight feels like an opportunity for Nebraska if they're able to get it done, on senior night at home. All of a sudden you go into that finale against Iowa feeling like you've got a shot, and you go into the Big Ten tournament feeling like you have a shot to do some things. So not totally crazy. It would probably take running to the final day of the Big Ten tournament to really enter the discussion, but they've played really well of late, and you've got those two seniors. 3 will be honored tonight. Vandemels, of course, can't play, but when you have Griesel and Walker and kind of the leadership there, and you're getting some really good performances out of players outside of those top 2, I'm not ready to say Nebraska can't keep it rolling, I guess, at this point.
Hey, Brandon, I'm just listening, and it got me thinking in one of my old coach isms, staying in the moment, right? We're fast forwarding, we're kind of projecting, hey, what does it take? What does this look like down the road? When apparently, and Coach Hoiberg referenced it in the pressers yesterday, you don't make those kind of comebacks and have these kind of games. You outscored Wisconsin in overtime. What was it, 10-2 or whatever it was, 12-2. You don't do those kinds of things without the ability to stay in the moment. How unique is this team, or how portable is it, however you look at it, that they seem to possess the ability to just stay in the moment, not looking to Iowa City until after tonight? Example.
Yeah, it feels pretty unique to me, and it might be a little bit unique to the situation. You look at this Nebraska season, and they've kind of hit all of the spots along the tour route, right? You had some early wins over good opponents, and you did that despite Derek Walker not being available for a stretch. Get into December and things are looking like, okay, maybe postseason is where this team is headed. Then you deal with some injuries after the start of the first year, and things get pretty low through a 4-game losing streak. Well, then you come back and figure some things out and go on a winning streak to basically erase that piece of it. So I think that if that doesn't drive home that message of like, hey, we're not worried about the Big Ten tournament, who we're going to face there. We're not worried about the Iowa game. We're worried about Michigan State tonight. Might be a little bit circumstantial, or it might be actually a facet of this team. And that's kind of one of those things where, not to fast forward again, but you've got to wait and see, hey, can you come back with that approach next year with a largely different team? Because it is important. There's a reason a lot of coaches preach that approach.
Is it because Casey is knocking down threes? Hoiberg, when he comes in, does some unique things, not only just defensively, but more of those scrappy plays. Is it because of guys like those two that we're seeing Griesel and Walker start to have success again and not feel as much defensive pressure as they once did have on the floor? Because for those two guys, it's been a difficult go at it. But then all of a sudden, when other things started to open up, it seemed like their job became a lot easier, and that's what's kind of led to the success that they're on.
Yeah, I think the emergence of Tominaga as a guy who can go for 20 points on any given night, it's hard for me to, I think, overstate the value of that, because prior to that point, what was Nebraska? Well, you had two guys who give you everything you want in terms of leadership and effort in Griesel and Walker. I mean, Walker leads the team in scoring. I think he's just under 14 points a game. and that's good. And he does a lot of things for you, but you just need somebody who can make shots, which isn't any great analysis, but it's the truth. And if Tominaga is doing that, not just behind the arc, like the thing that's been as shocking to me is his success finishing at the rim and getting into the lane, and that's a lot of kind of coaching and drawing some of that stuff up, but also reading and reacting to how teams are defending you. It's just it opens Sam and Derek up, I think, to just play the kind of game they've always been built to play. And it really shows, I think, the total value of what they're doing. If they're not your two guys who both have to go for 14 points a night, just because where else are the points going to come from?
Hey, B, before we get you out of here, let me cross over to football here real quick. With you heard the staff speak last week, and they're trying to set the stage for what they want to have happen in the spring. Is this one of those years, or how do you feel about when jobs should be declared? Are you willing to be a little bit more patient this year without any lofty expectations heading into spring and not hit panic?
Yeah, I am. I think in a lot of cases, I would almost, as someone sitting totally on the sidelines, prefer it if some of those key battles go up to fall camp or even into fall camp. I think that's part of a year one under a new staff. You're going to have, and part of a new staff is, the early enrollee numbers. You'll probably have larger groups come in earlier or later. So you're going to have a raft of new players who won't get here until the summer. So that'll be important to give those guys, a fair chance to show what they're able to do and what level they're at coming in. So for most of these position battles, I don't think there's one where you've got to come out of the spring and be like, well, that's where we're going. And we know it now. I mean, maybe the coaches will know it in certain cases, but I think all of the upside is on letting this run, letting it be, hey, we don't have to be ready to go on, May 1. We've got to be ready to go on August 31st.
Brandon Vogel, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. We'll talk again next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, B.
Managing editor for Hail Varsity. Coming up, we'll keep it with football and look around the Big Ten, talk about the biggest storyline for each team entering spring practice. That's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hale Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Top of the hour here on Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hale Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, happy to have you with us on today's show. Was Monday a good day for you? Maybe Tuesday will be better. The only way to cap off your day is by taking in an Acres Ale. Brewed with Nebraska corn, crisp and clean with a light, refreshing flavor. It's locally brewed. It's the perfect beer to wind down your work day, and it goes down smooth. It's not something that you're going to say, man, I don't even know if I'm going to get dinner down because this beer was so heavy. No, it's very light, and it pairs well with a lot of different things. So if you're looking for something maybe to celebrate tonight, DB, when you get home at 10 o'clock tonight, crack open an Acres Ale and say salute.
I will make breakfast with a victory
next to an Acres Ale.
Yeah. Do you think that would pair well?
I bet you could pour the Acres Ale into the sausage.
What was the really good one that we tried that I said had the most versatility? Was that Nebraska? The one with the red
dear
label?
old Nebraska brew.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, this one's
one's
kind of subtle. Maybe I could make what's a mimosa when you drink it at night? I could make it with burr.
You would make a mimosa with dear old Nebraska brew?
It just seemed light. I wouldn't do that. I don't have that kind of. I mean, I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy.
Can we hear the collide drop again?
It's a song. You and I collide.
Which isn't even right. It's do 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 do. Do it again. Come on, Shane.
How about no? How about no? How about a beer? Where's Brett Musburger when I need him?
How about a beer?
Get you a little Zipline ale.
Man, we may need a beer after.
No, you know who needs a beer? My buddy T. Mose. He needs a beer.
After you called him out for his grammar?
No, I really was not just messing with him, but he's sending me these clips of this game, and it's not very good. He's got a point here. He's got a point. When you start getting video evidence, my man is on one this morning.
Are we talking about officiating here?
Yes.
Are you talking about how you agree with poor officiating?
I am not in agreement. I am saying that based on the clips he showed me, he is validated. But listen, no, you're not gonna. This ain't cry for me, Argentina. We played in a game in that building where there were 48 fouls called. We have zero success over there off Highway 370 and 108 in basketball. It is a house of horrors. So, listen. It's all good in the neighborhood. Let's just talk wild cards.
No, let's get a win tonight is what's on your.
Oh, we don't have a chance.
Right.
We don't have a chance. Listen, I'd be being super disingenuous if I was telling you, man, seeds 1 through 5 hold. Hold. Give us an out clause.
Well, districts, there's no upsets in districts.
Well, I wanted. I'm just being honest. For all the wild card hate, I told you I'm not mad at Greta. The regular season should mean something, and I would gladly take the wild card. Now we don't have the type of team, in my opinion, that could recalibrate and dial back in after losing a district final game. So, okay, but believe me, I want the opportunity.
Let's transition to this because I read a couple of articles over the past few days. One was Athlon Sports came out with the Big Ten quarterback rankings. And then I read another article last night about storylines of each team entering the Big Ten. And then I even read something else. I don't know if it was yesterday or this morning.
Well, you just read so much, you can't keep track?
Well, no, but it all kind of ties into, it's the Big Ten expansion. So that was yesterday, too, on how Oregon and Washington are on the Big Ten's radar, but they're doing all of this, and they still haven't solved their problem at their core, which is filling Kevin Warren's shoes. We don't need to get into that in this segment.
Yeah, how are we gonna get expansion with no commish?
That's what I'm thinking.
Although, Judon, I got to tell you, do you know how bad I'm cheering for expansion?
I like expansion.
No, let me tell you the real reason. I just want to be right. For no other reason.
I think you just want to watch Kalen more times.
For no other reason that I'm shallow and I want to be right, because I have maintained for a couple of years now that the Big Ten is going to a 4-team pod and we need 2 more teams off the left coast. So I just want to be right.
The 2 big guys.
I mean, listen.
If you took Washington and Oregon along with USC and UCLA, I mean,
I'm not going to lie.
Much competition there.
I kind of want Stanford.
Stanford's another one that was talked about, but wasn't like if you looked into the crystal ball, they weren't in it.
Yeah. I kind of want Stanford. Now, the downside to getting Stanford, see, I always there's always the duality, right? See, the downside to getting Stanford is that brings them back into play because they're recruiting our household pretty tough, and they're trying to get him to take this other AP class so they can offer, because you have to be
a smart kid.
You have to meet the academic portion and then get qualified, and then get through admissions athletics wise. And so I'm like, shoot, does that help or hurt if Stanford's in the Big Ten because of the Big Ten footprint with him? So if it adds to Stanford being in play, I don't want them in. if it doesn't sway him at all, then do what you want to do.
I'll tell you what, though.
Am I terrible?
No.
Just trying to balance. I don't want him at some of these schools. It's okay. I said that out loud. Sorry, Caleb.
It's a good thing it's your choice.
Right. I know. I know. Sometimes I can be really, really selfish. I'm just not wearing any other. This is Omaha, Creighton, Nebraska. That's it. Outside of West Side
and St. Louis. Shane, that was so delayed.
I'm just repping my city and my state. I told him anything else, man, is a crapshoot. Just telling you.
No big
Dude,
deal.
I'm a jerk.
I don't know. I think you're going to be a big softy wherever he goes.
Nebraska.
I think you're going to be a big softy.
Can't you just make it easy? Do it.
Old Dominion.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going there. Did they offer him?
Do it.
Hey,
be peaches and cream.
What about Illinois? Is that a team that you could think?
No, although I don't know if he can handle Bielema. Bielema would kick him out of practice, and he'd feel, No, I'm just playing.
Well,
I like Illinois. I like what they're doing, and I like how they play. I watched them warm up, and I was like, oh yeah, they mean business. So that's the cheat code, right? I watch these teams and I listen to them and I watch them in pregame, and I was like, oh, I could be a part of that. Oh, we couldn't do that. Oh, they don't even have their pads on. Yeah, I'm good on them. Or no, I do those kinds of things. I like the way that Illinois plays.
Well, they're in with a new everything right now. They have to find a replacement for Chase Brown, which was the majority of their offense. Tommy DeVito is no more. Enter Luke Altmaier into the conversation, who came in at 12th in Athlon's Big Ten quarterbacks preseason rankings. The transfer from Ole Miss. He led Illinois in passing yards in 8 of the last, a transfer quarterback has led Illinois in passing yards in 8 of the last 9 seasons.
What if Sikowski wins that job? He can't win it?
He could, but this is just, I'm basing everything.
No. You don't have to defend it. I'm just,
right.
These are just hypotheticals.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Nothing is solidified with Illinois right now.
Yeah.
Nothing. Because as Ryan Walters exits to go take the head coach job at Purdue, you have Aaron Henry, who enters on defense, who went from DB coach.
Oh, Henry.
If I'm correct, DB coach to DC now. And now it's all about, can you replicate one of the nation's top defenses again?
Can I ask you a quick question about this quarterback thing? How can Calcamanis be last in the Big Ten?
Talk about a name that, going back to what we started with the show, with broadcasters needing to know, that's a name that you have to know.
Like, and I remember
Product
Greg.
of Antioch, Illinois, where my fiance's from.
Are we not? He has a ton of experience. He's playing in a similar system. I know you have co-OCs now in Minnesota, but how is he last? He looked pretty formidable against us. Did you watch that sorry QB run game they kept tanking at us?
Yeah, he looked okay.
If he's last in the Big Ten in terms of quarterbacks, man, this is going to be a tough conference.
Well, he finished the year with 946 yards and 3 scores. Only 4 picks, added 140 yards on the ground with a touchdown. This is somebody that came in for Tanner Morgan in an offense that really didn't favor the quarterback. It favored Mo Ibrahim, which is another void in that Minnesota offense.
Yeah.
Can they replace 3 interior linemen and a running back and start fresh with your guy, Kayak Manis? I don't know.
The thing that I think makes it easiest for them is the system is in place and he's familiar with it. It's not like Hudson Card. It's not like some of these guys, Tanner Mordecai, coming over learning another new system. I mean, Aller in Penn State, I mean, it's going to be relatively, it's not new, but experience for him.
What do you think of Aller? I mean, I think Penn State is actually in a decent position this year to not only answer the call for a Big Ten title potentially, but a college football playoff berth because of the question marks that surround Ohio State and who's going to be their quarterback next year. Now, McCord is in line to be that guy. But let's not sleep on the redshirt freshman.
Dude, Penn State.
Devin Brown's good.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I just think they have so many other things in place, and he's recruited well. Like at Penn State, like they recruited so well. He was playing 6 freshmen. I know 2 of them were at the running back spot, but still, like they went young. Now they've got to replace some guys that. Maybe one of the Steelers could draft her and Porter Jr. and guys like that, but I don't. Penn State for them, they may not need as good a quarterback play quickly with the tandem they have in that backfield. I mean, they got 2 studs, so
and they know who they are.
Yeah, the key for them will be continuing.
And James Franklin's a really good coach.
Continuing. Yeah, I don't know about that.
I think he's a really good coach.
I just don't think I could say that out loud. I mean, they
win.
He's productive. I
They
don't know
win.
about like some in-game things that drive me crazy.
And that's
very,
fine.
He's very polarizing. Because I could see your case. I mean, you don't do what you did at Vandy. And then, I get the prowess, but pit the record the last 2.5 years with what you just said, given how they've recruited. I don't know, man. I don't know if I don't know if I have the stones to say that out loud.
Well, they play in.
James Franklin's a really good guy.
They play in a super tough conference.
Yeah,
super tough. So some in-game decisions, like you're talking about, I'm sure you go back.
Well,
to
you don't give the
Ohio
states.
State.
You don't give the state school that leeway. They play in a super tough conference,
sure,
right? So I mean, I don't know if that's like the ace I would play. You know what I mean? Listen, I'm with you because I think he's polarizing. I think he's very polarizing.
He's got some Fran McCaffrey in him.
I still can't get over that.
I don't know if you ever will.
I've
never seen a coach do it.
Uncle Ruru.
Such a childish move.
That's where I was just getting ready to say
childish.
Uncle Ruru. That is something you and Claire would do to be playing to see who blinks first. She's 2. Okay, like I've never, and say what you want about Kelly. I listen, say what you want, but I've never seen anything like that. I watched that thing 15 times just because I was mesmerized. Who does that? And how do you, are you just so well established with whatever it is your accolades are where you don't give a what? Because how do you walk around the office and feel good about yourself? Do you just lack that kind of self-awareness?
I don't think he cares what anybody thinks.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if you don't have that kind of self-awareness and you're just like, I've done this, I can do it, then I guess you feel okay.
Well, it's no wonder his kids have to play for him.
That's tough.
No. He's a bully. Like, Fran probably bullies his kids to play for him.
Yeah. Back to Penn State, though. I do get, I think about it a ton with Franklin because I want to give him some credit because he's got some tremendous notches in his belt. I just wonder how you just point blank flat out looked at me and you said, James Franklin's a really good coach. I just don't know if I could say that.
Since he got there, 7-6, 7-6, 3-11, 4-11 win seasons, 11-3, 11-2, 11-2, 11-2. I mean, yes, he had 2020 and 2021 weren't fantastic. But 2021 he went 7-6. They went to a bowl game every year but one.
I just don't. I get the polarizing part. I just don't know if I could say he's a really, really good. Or you only said one, really.
Mm-hmm.
He's a really good coach. I don't know. There's just
you can sway me one way or another.
I just don't know
claim.
if that's a hill that I want to die on just yet.
And this year, I think we'll solidify that.
Maybe it's a good little baseline. Although, will he get the breaking in a new quarterback? Because I think Aller got the mop up duty against Ohio State, and he's a big, strong guy. I mean, he's 6'5", he's 240. I mean, he can sling the peel. But I don't color me curious on Penn State because the guy that's ranked ahead of him in that quarterback deal needs to have a bounce back year, and that's Peyton Thorne.
Yes, he does.
Because I've been hearing about him.
Good
They
point.
shocked me. I told you last year, right? I'm amazed that they didn't have a better year with Reed. And somehow I know Reed was second team all conference. I think he was living off what he did last year or 2 years ago because he was their third leading receiver last year, which was weird. But how did the combination of Thorne and Reed not work more?
It's just the fact that
you talk about a big year. That's a big year for Mel Tucker, in my opinion.
Right. Well, they don't have Kenneth Walker.
Well, that's what everybody said last year. So let's see. And I'm with you. Let's see if.
But if you look at the numbers for Thorne, with Walker, he had over 3,000 yards. Without him, he barely eclipsed 2,600.
You're preaching to the choir as a running back or whatever it is that I used to do. Like I would love to be I would love to be my quarterback's best friend. I'd love run action, all that kind of stuff.
And Mel Tucker put together a top 25 recruiting class this year.
I think he's gone Drake back to back. Shane, never mind. I'm not really talking to you until Collide. It's a song. See?
No, I think you're talking Drake.
Back to back.
No.
Collide. It's a song. You and I collide. Is that always going to be funny?
Because it's wrong, and you're not wrong all too much.
It's the second part of the do chord. It's not the initial. It's the second part. Yeah, it's the tail end of the first. It
stays high. It stays high twice.
Okay, so I didn't nail the thing, but the staccato, is it staccato onomatopoeia? I don't know. Amazing Dan is probably.
You know what it is.
What? It's a song. Shut up, Shane. Let's get out of breath, Brian, and break up this monotony.
Okay, let's go to line one.
My hands around your little Vienna sausage neck.
Oh, out of breath, Brian. He's talking to you. What's up, man?
No, Brian's bigger than me. It'd be a weak job to catch his larynx. What's up, B? How are you?
I know, just listening to you talk about your son.
Hey, wait, B. Sorry to interrupt. What would you have done to Fran McCaffrey?
What would I done? I missed that one. What did he do?
He walked over to the baseline and stared down an official during a timeout. Oh, you got to go back and watch it.
In his face. I probably would just laughed in his face. That's me. Don't touch. At his pay level, if he would have touched me, at his pay level, he would have touched me, I would have acted like I got hit. You know what we say on the north side? If anybody ever hit us in the back of the car accident, we're going to get out of a fake injury. Oh, man.
I can tell you what, they would not have gotten another call all night. Iowa would not have gotten another call.
Have you had any of those? Because you've officiated a long time, man. You've had to have some back and forths.
I've tried to make a joke. About how one time we had a parent operating the clock and they kept starting it late, but I kept counting the time off with my hand and was adjusted as the game went. Well, it came down like the last 4 seconds of the game, and he didn't start the clock for 2 seconds. His team shot the ball, got the rebound, and then shot it with 2 seconds left, and the ball went in. And I said, well, if the game was over with, which it was, I just gonna say there was a endowed woman that chest bumped me, and
what the?
She chest bumped me after the game. Then she was mad.
Wow.
And I try to keep myself in the same place and think about something funny. You college, and they said you're gonna do a speech in public, think about everybody naked. I didn't think about everybody naked, but I thought about something to keep myself calm.
Oh my God.
And I'm not going to say it.
I thought he was going to help me deal with Shane. I don't feel like I'm being helped right now.
Hey, all you can do is just laugh. Just laugh, David. All you can do is laugh it off. People came and helped me. They see you a good official. Mm-hmm. People come and help you and jump in. But it was I made the best of it. Laugh and say, I just got bumped. I got chest bumped by.
I'm gonna send it to you.
Hey, Brian, back to your original point. Talk about what you were going to say.
I was just wondering. I was like, "What's your list name of the schools you don't want your kids to go to?" I know Duke got to be on it. I know you're not gonna let Duke come up to your door. Well, I'm gonna be disappointed. I mean, it's already bad enough that worry about your son having a father that's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, trying to hate on him getting recruited. It's already bad enough for this. I feel sorry for him. I always thought that when I was referencing your kid. I'm like, what a nice kid.
Hey, I'll be honest though. As much as I hate Duke basketball, and there's no question I do, I will say Elko something comes in the mail 4 times a week from Duke.
I figure that. Like, they know about something bad. Stanford knows. Stanford wouldn't be too bad. What is an AP class? I heard you refer to what is AP class?
A college course.
Yeah, he needs another college course. I believe it's English, because it's not just about his GPA. He needs another college course, and they had a transition in staff once they let Shaw go, the current staff has kind of picked up where they left off. So, I mean, I don't know. I with television, I don't have to worry about it, but
congratulations to the young man. I know I've seen him, been nice young man. Hey, let us see him grow up. It's an interesting thing to see. I'd love to do it again.
I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Have a
great day, fellas.
Hey, thanks, Brian.
I'm gonna need a psychiatrist.
Call in anytime.
I got Dr. Stark on speed dial just to balance my emotions. Sometimes I just want to sound off, and then other times it's like, oh my gosh, I have to be a parent.
Man, I got to tell you, I remember my AP English course, the last one I had to take in high school, and what's he reading? Beowulf?
Dude,
Dana. We had to like recite like the first opening line of that book. I don't even remember what it was written in, but it wasn't English. And I'm like, oh, great, AP English.
And I'm like, listen, if you got an offer from Duke and Vandy, certainly Stanford can bite the bullet, can't they?
It's old English.
Really?
I don't really care at this point. I just fast forward, man. Whatever.
Hey, let's change gears.
Go to Northwest Missouri State. Let's go get us a national championship.
Let's talk pace of play next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. Amazing Daniel on YouTube. I'm just going to let you struggle with that. Onomatopoeia. Yeah, that's probably it.
Wait, what is it, though? Why didn't he just tell me?
Because he just wants it to rest,
fester.
like uneasy.
Is it
with you.
Staccata? Or am I thinking of the movie Stigmata? It's Staccata. I'm just going to Google. Lord knows he's not going to help me. And can you believe his wife is like super nice and he's kind of like not? Like, how does that work?
Way to be blunt.
Well, I didn't have another word, obviously.
She's like super nice. Oh my goodness, she's so down to earth, so caring, and he just sucks. That's exactly what
I simply said not. He's always gonna have he's got a soft spot with me for two reasons. Number one, I've known him forever, so I feel like okay, we're in that tree of trust. The other thing is he's a Steelers fan.
He is a Steelers fan,
so we're good.
You guys are one and the same.
Can we get back to this quarterback situation thing though?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I noticed for Nebraska and we're talking quarterback situation. Welcome back to Coffee and Cream in the Morning. It's my main man, AR-15, which I shouldn't usually say, but you are in my phone as AR-15.
Locked and loaded.
Well, the whole Second Amendment thing, right? I just reserve the right to be able to call you what I want.
Isn't that the First Amendment?
Sure. Wait,
freedom of speech.
Is that in the First Amendment or the Second Amendment? Because I know the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms thing.
Yeah.
Can I combine them?
Sure.
Can I call you 1.2?
Amen.
I don't even know it. But with the Nebraska thing, they say Casey Thompson, Jeff Sims, because you've heard the latest reports, and I'm just going to ask myself here shortly. But now all of a sudden, Casey Thompson appears to be a candidate to participate in spring ball.
Yeah, Jeff Sims was the one people are gravitating to as if, hey, he's the one.
Yeah, but wait though, right? Remember, it was Casey Thompson's going to miss all of spring. How will this sit? Is he a coach? Is it? But then it's, hey, Casey Thompson's a little ahead of schedule. He's a couple weeks ahead of schedule. Now it's Casey Thompson could be a participant in spring ball. If that's the case, Andrew Rogers, does that change the way you feel about the quarterback race?
It'll be a lot more competitive.
Do you think if you're Casey Thompson, if you're Andrew Casey Thompson Rogers, right? Your parents had an epiphany and they want you to be a quarterback at Nebraska. If you're not
my left hand.
If you're not 100%, do you go through spring ball?
It all really depends on.
You trust the new guys and say, hey, listen, this isn't going to be my best, but I'm going to go through this anyway so I can get the reps. Hey, cool not to critique me? We good? Yeah, we good. Hey, I'm going to be hobbling through this whole thing as a running back. Don't judge me when you compare me to everybody else, okay? We're good?
I don't think that needs to be said, for one.
Hey,
but
you'd
two,
you'd be surprised. You would be surprised. See, I think sometimes people are reluctant to not come back until they're 100% because they don't want to be judged otherwise.
And they also don't want to be anything less than 100%.
But I think a lot of life is functioning at 70%. Right? I mean, do
A
you
lot
feel
of
100?
football is
Do you feel
functioning
100?
at 70%.
How about just regular day to day? Do you feel 100% every day?
No.
You've been hacking for 3 weeks,
Yeah,
right?
I
And
don't
you
even know
got
what's going on.
right? So it's like,
But I'm here. I
Do-
do it. I do the job.
is it different when it's something physical?
I think so, especially in regards to
Remember Kawhi Leonard?
his throwing arm.
Kawhi Leonard, you're cleared. Kawhi Leonard, I can't function like I want to. No, Kawhi, you're cleared. No, I can't function what I want to. Oh man, Kawhi, you just won out. Right? So it's like when those alpha folks sometimes don't want to be judged until they know that they're full go.
You know, it wouldn't shock me either if the late spring
Helps.
played into not only
Ah,
Rule's
good-
hand but Casey's hand
Good call.
in regards to the quarterback competition aspect. Because if they were to start like Michigan started right away, I mean they're already doing things right. It's like okay, well we know Jeff Sims is probably going to be the guy, right? But now
Because I've heard all the pre-spring talk. It's since Matt Rule's gotten here, he's been overly gushing about Jeff Sims and he's been blah about Casey Thompson. Am I reading into that too much? That's generally speaking what
no,
we've
because
heard.
that's Matt Rule's guy. That's the guy he went after. That's the guy he wanted in the portal.
So, you know, if you're looking at this situation now, all of a sudden he's a viable candidate in spring ball. Could you foresee Casey Thompson playing in such a way where he's not going to hurt himself?
When the doctors clear him, no.
So Casey Thompson strikes me as the type of quarterback that makes you uncomfortable that he's not playing, unless your current quarterback is playing at a high level. Does that make sense? I'm not asking.
And is that because of his IQ?
I just think he's steady. You know what you're getting. I told you, you're getting 24 and 13, 2,500 yards. I mean, that's just who he is.
Is that similar to?
So is it any way? Let me ask it to you a different way. Is it any way more difficult on Jeff Sims? Because Sims knows he's got to be better than that.
Oh yeah.
We don't look at it like that. We're like,
I looked at it right away as a competition, from a competition viewpoint of he knows he's going to have to be better now to withhold the job.
So specifically, when I say that, I mean, if I know every night that you're capable of going 12 and 6, 12 points, 6 assists, 1 turnover, I may have a higher ceiling. But every night I know I have to go minimum 12, 6, and 1. Do you look at that differently? Where you're not going to have a 25-point night and then go for 2 the next? Now, I know what the average is, so don't do that.
Right,
but
and I wouldn't play off of average. But if I'm going for 25 a night and then 2 the next, I don't want that inconsistency.
Okay, so that's what
But if I'm going for 25, more times than not, I won't be going for 2 every night. I'd be going for 25 more times than 2.
Here's the thing, though, because this is what happens with upside. I see it in recruiting all the time, and I chuckle. Oh, man, the upside. And I laugh. I'm like, the more times you use the term upside, the more you're going to struggle in the meantime because you're still waiting. All potential ability is potential, right? At some point. So
at some point, upside has to go out the window.
Is it weird to think if you show me you're capable of going for 20 a night, that's the standard that I hold you to? That's what you have to think about when you're critiquing. Style of play. I remember competing against a guy that had a propensity to put the ball on the carpet. Okay. This was early. 2 guys, as a matter of fact, had a propensity to put the ball on the carpet, but they were home run hitters. So I'm like, man, I just need to be consistent. And I remember one of the sit downs, it was, the ability to make the big play. We need to factor that in. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, I'm consistent. Yeah, but the ability to factor in the big play. And so I've kind of grown to think like sometimes when you play with an eraser, it can make you lazy as a coach. I've always said this about the quarterback play. When you got a quarterback that when all else fails, he can go make a play for you. Sometimes it can make you lazy as an OC because you draw up things with intent of him making a big play. When sometimes all you simply need is consistency.
Right.
All Nebraska fans have clamored for, probably since second year Taylor Martinez, and I'm going back a ways, is consistency. I don't want the super highs, the super lows. I just want consistency. Are we now conditioned to just want consistency?
When you match upside with creativity, though, then I think
you're willing to kind of.
I'm willing to compromise more, because when I look at somebody that's eclipsed their upside, instead of saying like, hey, I'm banking on you making this big play, I'm getting lazy, maybe in turn in my head I go more toward the, hey, let me get creative with you now. It's kind of a lot like what the Chiefs have been doing with Mahomes.
Are you a
upside?
Are you a trust guy? Like,
no doubt.
So, and I think most coaches are. So I got to know who I can trust. Sometimes I think 90% of the time it seems like coaches are willing to go with the consistency versus the spectacular because they want to know what they're getting. Does that change the way that you view the quarterback race, or is all of a sudden you trust in Satterfield and the staff that all of a sudden Sims is going to settle down and become more consistent?
That's the big word. That is the big word. Lance, hang on. We'll get to you next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back to the show, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved, it's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Happy to have you with us and happy to take your calls. Let's go to line one. Lance, you're on the show. Good morning, Lance.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good. What you got?
Good. Hey.
What's up, buddy?
I actually think Casey's going to end up being the starter this next year.
Wait, go ahead. Say that again, Lance.
I think Casey's going to be the starter this next year.
Okay.
And I think especially if he is healthy in the spring, the big question that I have is how much actual design QB run game are they going to have? And that probably will indicate who that starter is going to be. I think Casey prepares well, but if you're going to start a guy like Sims over Casey, who probably completes about 8% less of his passes, if you're not going to design runs for him, I think it's really hard to plan an offense where you're like, well, he may give us a big play on a scramble. And I don't think you're going to pick the guy that's going to play every down based on his ability to scramble in a scramble throw.
So let me ask you something, Lance. Do you think that there's a point, and you've been through it all here as a huge fan, didn't we reach a point with like, let's say Adrian Martinez, where we just wanted him to be consistent? And then once he was consistent, it was, oh, okay, maybe it's time for a fresh start. We know what we're getting. What's the new shiny thing? With Tommy Armstrong, it was, they coined the phrase YOLO balls, right? But when he was good, he was really, really good. Then there was Iowa, right? So we're like, gosh, if you were just consistent. I'm not sure. So I'm just asking these questions rhetorically with Andrew, because I think we have to be careful with wanting upside. Adrian Martinez was a victim of 2018 success, right? Armstrong was a victim of firing a laser on a skinny post to Kenny Bell. Taylor Martinez was a victim to going 80 against K-State. Like, do we want consistency again, or do we not?
I think we do. I just don't think we realize it in the moment. So
that's a good call.
Yeah, I think when you see people make amazing plays, we're like, oh, we fall in love with that. But then when that's such a small percentage of how the game goes, then you look over how the course of a season goes. And like last year, I think if Casey does not get hurt, that's the most consistent QB play we've seen. I mean, you probably win another 2 games, not to talk about the past, but I think he's the best we've had in terms of consistency in a really long time. Because it's easy to fall in love with the big play, whether it be Tommy or Taylor or Adrian. I mean, Adrian was probably a victim of his 6 games as a freshman where we want that guy. And that really over the course of time, we found out that really wasn't him. So I would always go with consistency, as long as the consistency is productive, over a guy that might make 1 or 2 plays every couple of games.
Let me ask you something. I'll get you out of here on this, Lance. I appreciate the call. Is that the book? Because you're around a lot of football guys close to the program. Is that your sphere of influence's general consensus, or are you kind of on an island?
I think from what I hear, like if you can get that sort of play, and the caveat is you're not going to run the ball a ton, like team guaranteed QB runs, then that's very high level quarterback play. Now, if you're going to move to where you're going to run the ball more and scheme just a bunch of QB run games, then you're probably going to look at Sims. But from what I was heard last year from talking to people close to the program, Casey had a lot of places where he should have probably been running the ball and told he had to keep it, and we didn't see that a lot. So if we could get that a little more, but with the consistency in the throwing game, I think Casey's the guy.
Lance, appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
He's the first one on record I've heard say that.
I'll tell you,
the very first one I've heard.
I'll tell you in regards to the Adrian Martinez comment, and you mentioned 2018, big year, comes back, high expectation, articles were written, future Heisman, he's on the list, and expectation was set.
6-1 odds.
That's what people read into. And it goes back to what we talk about with recruits a lot, DB, is you have a lot of hype. You have to reach a certain expectation, and now you're all of a sudden feeling that pressure. And can you overcome that pressure to meet the expectation that people want you to meet instead of just finding that consistent baseline like you were kind of talking about?
So the caveat, I don't know how you feel about this without real life examples, but the caveat, I know what coaches would probably say. They'd probably say, yes, consistency is great, but there's 6 to 7, there's a handful of plays a game that a quarterback's got to be able to make
to win the game
that is out of the, for lack of a better term, the consistency mold. Is that seems like what a coach would tell me. Hey, there's a handful of plays though, and that guy has got to be capable of making them.
Do you go from 3-9, 4-8, 2-10 per se, and get there by leapfrogging consistency and go to upside? I don't think so. I don't think you get there like that. You may be on the border of being consistent with the upside guy, but I don't think you get straight to the upside that you're looking for unless you get some consistency first. And that's what needs to be established in spring. Come spring, figuring out through spring who's going to be the guy that brings you consistency so that you can start to build back toward where you want to go. Matt Rule's not a guy that will turn it around in year one and just make you go 12-0, 10-2. Not to say that he can't be that guy. It's just track record shows that that's not how it works with him. It's a slow burn to get there. Yes, he mentioned before that the slow burn happened last year, and he doesn't want to say, hey, we're going to go 3-9 this season. But you have to establish a form of consistency before you can even talk upside with this program.
Yeah. It's different because they have so many new players. I'm thinking as you're talking to me, and I'm like, okay, when did I start talking about Nebraska needs better players? Well, I barely ever did, except for a handful of games. I remember Oklahoma this year. I was like, oh my gosh, they have nobody for that guy. They have nobody for that guy. And then I watched Oklahoma the rest of the year, and I was like, God, was Nebraska's psyche and morale that shook after 1 week of a coaching change where, okay, throw that one out the window. They played Ohio State tough and Lincoln last year. Remember that? And we were like, what in the world is Ryan Day doing? I still didn't talk about talent. But there were some plays over the course of the season where I was like, their guys are just better than our guys. So I'm factoring all that in when I'm listening to you ask me the question. I think what Nebraska misses the most is consistency. They do. So I'm with you there. I just wonder what happens. So would I say it like this? Let's just get consistent in playing good football, and we'll worry about getting difference makers later?
Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, like, is that – because I told you when Kevin on Twitter told me this years ago. This is probably, I don't know, it just started. It's probably 10 years ago. He's like, oh man, it's a lot easier to go from 4 to 8 than it is from 8 to 10 in terms of wins. We were having these conversations about Coach Pelini. And I definitely think he's right. I think 4 to 8, going from 4 to 8 is all about consistency. I do. I firmly believe that. 8 to 10 is more about higher end talent.
Get consistency, discover playmakers later. Yes. To answer your question.
Yeah. So did it surprise you that a couple of our guys in the DMs thought that last week when we were talking about this, that 5 wins would be disappointing next year? I was surprised that was the response. Right? Because we got into it and I was like, if Coach Rule goes 5-7, and you said, well, he's not going to say that out loud, but if there's progress to be made,
right,
then he'd probably take 5-7.
And other people said, no, I'm not taking 5-7.
Isn't that weird though?
It's more wins than Coach Frost ever got.
And when's the last time we won 5? Was it 19?
Long time ago.
Well, I mean, it's not that long, but it's long.
It feels long.
When you're winning 3 and 4 games ago, and I can't remember, but maybe that's just more me. Is 5 wins disappointing?
Not if there's progress made.
So you want consistent. I'm just.
At the end of the day, it all starts and ends with consistency.
So how do we? So going back to that quarterback ranking, did it surprise you that Tanner Mornicai? We were talking. This originally started with Athlon's article about ranking the Big Ten quarterbacks. Did it surprise you that Tanner Mordecai at Wisconsin came in number 2?
See, I think we looked at different rankings because my rankings did not have him at 2. The one that I looked at.
So are you talking about Athlon's ranking the Big Ten quarterbacks?
Yep.
Athlon's QB rankings.
Yeah, I got the early 2023 QB preview and rankings. So I think they're 2 different articles. But
wow,
they're both Athlon Sports.
From the same people, huh?
Yeah, because 2 on this list is Tagovailoa.
Well, he's 1 on this one.
And then JJ's 1 on this one.
McCarthy.
So, I mean, just right there, talk about how even writers from the same platform can't figure out who's coming first.
I'm on your article now, and I kept the other one open. So they went McCarthy, Tua, then McCord. See, McCord is like 6 on the other one.
And that's why I said high expectation for him. Hey, we'll talk to Joelle Lorenzi next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Welcome back to the show, 9 o'clock, which means if you're tuning in Lincoln, you can catch us now. KFOR 9 to 10 over in Lincoln, 590 ESPN Omaha from 7 to 10, Monday through Friday. We're live on Twitter, we're live on YouTube, and we are happy to have you with us. Before we get to our next guest, I'd like to tell you about Dingman's Collision Center. Dingman's 4 locations throughout the metro area, along with a standalone mechanical shop at 120th and Maple. I actually drove by a Dingman's over the weekend, which I'm like, wow, I didn't even know Dingman's was right here. But there they were over in Papillion, right across from the Beanery, another great sponsor of the show. But Dingman's has been in the business for over 25 years, and you're not in the business that long unless you're doing something right. They treat the customer with respect, and they make sure to get the job done promptly and effectively. If you need or have any issues with your car, head over to Dingman's. They're family-owned and family-run local business. We support local. Go to Dingman's Collision Center for any car needs. Let's change gears and talk Creighton basketball with our guy, Joelle Lorenzi, here as we do every Tuesday morning on the show. Joelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. What's going on?
Well, you know, I finally get to talk about Lillard going for 71 and going
LeBron
13.
getting hurt.
Yeah, that's going to be
getting hurt.
Hey, so let's start right there, just real quick before we
Andrew,
dabble.
why are you doing that? Hold on, Andrew. Why are you doing that? Why you just saying something from Dame to dudes getting injured? Come on, man. Keep it on the light note this morning.
Hey, LaMelo's my guy.
Yeah, that is true.
I have 7 rookie cards of LaMelo Ball. 7.
Hey, what's the irony?
I'll give you one.
That those guys were tied to, because I remember the Lakers thought that Lonzo was in trouble for wearing big baller brand sneakers, which is why he was having the knee problems. He can't get that thing put back together. Then his brother goes down with a non-contact injury. Do they need to be wearing different shoes? What are we talking? I'm kind of being facetious here, Joelle, but you think there's something to that?
Maybe Lonzo should have been wearing different shoes, but Melo, he got his own signature with Puma. I think it's part of the way he plays, man. I just, you feel bad for a dude because it's one of the more fun players, and one of the more promising stars in the league, man. Just sad. And you know what? I guess the one silver lining in it is that they're up there in the Wemby sweepstakes. That's for sure.
Yeah, he is boy, do you need a certain frame to function in the NBA, do you think, or because of that skill, you think there can be more than one KD kind of Dirk with that long, angular, no mass kind of build?
Barring injuries, he's going to be good. I know that video of him getting posted up was circulating last weekend. That doesn't matter, man. I mean, people still got to guard this dude, and he was shooting. And we're talking about at the beginning of the season, he was shooting floaters from three off one leg. The skill on this dude at his age is remarkable. So people have to guard him, and then on the other end, he's still a lethal, help defender and a rim protector. I mean, see if you want one-on-one right now because of his weight. Obviously, he might not be super suitable to check a Giannis or Embiid, but he'll get there. And I mean, truthfully, who can check Embiid and Giannis one-on-one?
All right, so let's stay in the post because we've been talking about his statistics and the lack of double-digit field goal attempts per game with Kalkbrenner. How much of that is in your opinion on Coach Mack to be firm in terms of paint touches and how they need to play versus Kalk needing to be a little bit more assertive with his repertoire while he's on the blocks?
Well, some of it I think lately is they found themselves. I think that especially you look at the past two games. I think when they end up down or in those scenarios, obviously I don't think they panic, but they kind of get that sense like, okay, we need to run through Kalkbrenner now, and I think teams have adjusted to that those moments. And when Creighton gets in those moments, you can tell because they start forcing it to Kalkbrenner, and there come the errant, post entries, and I think the entry passes have not been great over the past few games, and it's led to turnover after turnover. I think you saw it a lot in that Marquette game. And I think teams have just decided to defend Kalkbrenner differently because obviously he's not one who's going to catch it and then do his work after catching the ball. He's going to do most of the work before catching the ball to score. And so I think now teams are, waiting for that errant lob to him in the post and catching him underneath, sneaking someone along the baseline, making sure a help defender catches him when he catches it on the road. Like, people have found ways to defend him. I think in part it's the way that they pass it to him. Just different things. I think the teams are just catching up and finding a way to defend the way he scores now.
Let me steal one more while we're talking Kalk. Before, so does Creighton need to adjust the way that's played offensively with Kalkbrenner or defensively with Kalkbrenner, and maybe starting to need to do something with the drop coverage in terms of how they want to play ball screens? Because it appears that the scouting report is left them a little vulnerable to how the Creighton wants to keep him in the middle of the floor.
Well, it's like the Bucks in the regular season, right? Like, your bread and butter wins you most games, but there's going to be a game here and there where you lose because of your bread and butter. And theirs is dropped just like the Bucks. And I thought, I mean, this is the thing. Eric Dixon, I don't think he'll ever go for 31 in college again. He had a hell of a game, career performance. If that's the way you lose, I mean, damn, like, what can you do, right? And Nova, I think people, for those who haven't kept up with Nova has flipped the switch in recent weeks, and I think it started with the game in Omaha because obviously getting more back in the fold changes things. But man,
they won a game in which he scored in the single digits, though, and I get his presence on the floor, but virtually an offensive non-factor unless he was setting the initial ball screen to help the drop against the drop coverage. That was kind of him and Daniel's work the other night.
Yeah, I think Villanova did a good job recovering when he was the one setting that first ball screen. If he ended up setting like a pin down or something, a second action that Villanova had to scramble to defend because the shooter was coming off real quick, then that's when I thought he had got looks. But I didn't see that too much throughout the game. But defensively, I mean that's why they lost the game was Dixon's 31, and that's just I think a lot of it is Creighton giving up all those paint touches. And he feels as a big man. I mean, I watch big men so closely because I think that's my favorite mode of player in history. When you're a rim protector and you got a knack for protecting the rim, blocking shots, being a presence like he is, paint touches, your teammates allowing paint touches, it makes you itch, man. You want to get back to where you like to be on the floor. And with Dixon lighting him up like that, you could tell he was itching. He's like, damn, man, these dudes keep letting them break the perimeter. Like, I gotta show real quick at the rim. And it killed him a lot.
Dixon went for 20 the first time around, and he did it in the paint. I know he shot 1 of 6 from 3, but in the first one, but that's 2 games now where he's gone for 51. It's not by accident.
Yeah. Dixon's a tricky matchup. And you've seen, I think, Kalkbrenner, and obviously some of the earlier matchups were due to him being sick or whatever, but you've seen some dudes score on Kalkbrenner one-on-one down there this year. I think that's kind of been tricky for him because he's one that likes to defend without fouling. So he's probably not going to get into you as much as somebody else. But yeah, Dixon was killing in the second half in the first game, just getting to the line, getting into it. I think he's a tricky matchup. I think Creighton really has to watch out for a guy of his mold, whether that's, a smaller, non-traditional big that could kind of dribble pitch and maybe score some in the post and like stretch the floor. I know I'm saying all that and it sounds like a rare mold, but it's possible for them to run somebody like that in the tournament. Even just somebody who can maybe score a couple times in the post and stretch the floor. Because I think obviously once you pull Kalkbrenner from the rim, all the bad things, you open Pandora's box, man.
We're talking to Joelle Lorenzi, Creighton beat for the Omaha World-Herald at JX Lorenzi on Twitter. Joelle, we got into this conversation yesterday about the 2 teams in the state and who feels better about the state of their program right now. Is it Nebraska because of what they've been able to accomplish and the wins that are piling up, but they're still on the outskirts of making the tournament? Or is it Creighton in regards to, hey, they still have postseason, in the window? Like they know that that's coming. They can see it out in the distance. But to avoid going with more of that question, I want to ask you this, because in regards to the whole state of the program point that I was trying to make there, if you don't get to the Sweet 16, if you don't get to the Elite 8, if you don't get to the Final Four, which expectation was set for Creighton this year, is that an underwhelming season for this team?
I think in a lot of cases, yes. I have to see the path to the Sweet 16 or whatever. But I'll talk about this with somebody yesterday. If they just lay an egg in a tournament, then hell yeah. But if if something, if they have some misfortune like they've had in recent years, I won't speak that on them. But if they have some misfortune with injuries, or if they I don't know, if they end up having something to where it's out of their control, then that maybe. But it's so interesting because you want to give the team credit for putting themselves back in position to even go on the run after that 6-game losing streak in December, right? Where people were ready to give it all up, and now they're here. But yeah, they're a lot of scenarios where I'd say this season could end up a disappointment if they don't go on a run.
So, some of the positives, and I go back to you and I always talk about and inevitably it comes up about Coach Mack and this staff's ability to recalibrate and get players right. Right. I gave you the analogies a couple weeks ago. King going from not playing to still playing to being functional when he does play. Sharif, his ability to hit the on and off switch when maybe minutes aren't consistent. Just the Jedi mind tricks that he's been able to play. How about the bounce back game from Kaluma after getting benched for 15 minutes? He comes back to have the impressive performance he did. Is it possible, Joelle, to get Trey, Art, and Nemhard contributing to their skill sets in the same game against good caliber competition?
It's really, really tough. Like, that ends up being a perfect day, I think, because Kalkbrenner is supposed to be the one constant, right? So that's one guy that you're assuming is gonna do well in the box score, but then it's always like at least these dudes are gonna perform on a given day, because that's just the way this game goes. And I'm not sure. I can't remember the last time all three of those sophomores killed in the same game. Truthfully, it definitely seems like the games that Kaluma pops off are not the same games that the backcourt is, standing out.
Joelle, look at the importance of winning out here, because you have DePaul on deck. You have Georgetown, obviously, coming up on Wednesday. But where it sits today, Creighton is looking in as a 4 seed in the Big East tournament, and that would have them facing UConn. But is their path easier if they get to 3? If they went out and they end up being a 3 seed, say Providence finds a way to lose that spot in the Big East tournament, does that give Creighton the best chance at winning the Big East?
As opposed to UConn on the first day, hell yeah. I think they know they probably don't want to play UConn that first day. I think that's the type of mold of team that has bothered them. Obviously, UConn pretty much punked them in stores, and here it took a lot to win that game. Very ugly game. Jordan Hawkins stood on the line. It took a lot to win that game. And say what you want about UConn sliding their league play, but they're still a good team, man. At their best, they're a good team, and Shinogo still finds ways to get it done against Creighton. And they got weapons, man. I mean, even Andre Jackson can turn any shot into a floater. So I think that's the team they don't want to play on the first day. That's for sure. Any other route would be a better route, yes.
When you're taking a look at kind of the conference from top to bottom in terms of what's made teams successful, who has the most left? And maybe upside isn't the word, but who has the most left in terms of hitting peak performance?
In regards to, wait, repeat your question.
So, we've seen almost the whole body of season of work from the Big East, right? We'll start Big East tournament play. Who has the most left to be different than what we've seen up to this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In terms of the conference, top to bottom,
yeah,
it got to be Nova. Just because I think people still haven't caught on to them. I will say, obviously, like their Big East tournament is their lifeline. Like, if they don't go all the way, then we're not seeing them in the tournament. Most likely, I'd almost bet my house on that. So,
do they have a lot left in the tank without Archie Diacono being that guy at the point?
I think so, man.
So I think they're the easy answer. But the thing that concerns me with them is, I think you know what you've got to do with them, right? It's a 4-man show, and you got to get better point guard play. I'm listening to be convinced otherwise, though.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Moore the other day, the way they dismantled Creighton, and Moore had 8 assists, and obviously a lot of that is knowing where Eric Dixon was, but he set a lot of that up. I mean, it was tactical, and I think they could ride that at least through the Big East tournament. I mean, they got ways to beat teams. As for the teams at the top, who has another
gear
level to be reached? I don't know. Maybe I don't know, because Marquette is pretty much peaking right now. I mean, they're number 6 in the country. I would have said Marquette, but people are giving them a lot of credit now. So it's hard to say they could be better than what they've been.
Could I
But would've
convince
said
you that it's
Marquette.
UConn?
I think there's a case. That was another team I was thinking of. I think there's a case. I think people have forgotten how good UConn was because of the way they slid in league play. I think people can't forget that at their peak, man, they're still a good team.
Joel, it all started for this team as the deepest team in Coach Mac's 13 years in Omaha. And then you look at the how's it going portion of that, and it's the fewest bench points averaged in the Big East. What do you make of the bench's minor progression and then regression this year? And how much do you think depth plays into this point of the season and so forth as March approaches?
Yeah, I'm not sure I've seen anything like it from going in the summer saying it was his deepest team ever to now, a month ago, people were laughing at that, and obviously some of the reserves have made strides, but still probably not enough to where you're confident about them going 8, 9 deep in the tournament run, right? Like just enough to where I think now you're like they come in the game and your blood pressure is up if you're a Creighton fan. Like I think Mason Miller has played really good minutes when they've had to sit Art in recent weeks. Sharif has done what he's supposed to. I think Febrauary is still probably troublesome, but beyond the shooting, I think he does what he's supposed to. But it's important at this time of year, man. They need at least one of these dudes to have good minutes in these tournaments, or they're not going to go far. Frankly, you cannot ride 5 dudes the whole way. It's just it feels impossible. I haven't seen that before.
Joel, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. We will talk again next week.
Hey, thanks, guys. Hey, and shout out Dame. I don't like how y'all.
I tried. I wanted to go there because my kid loves this game, man, and I wanted to go there 13 to 22 from behind the arc, man. 71. He's something else. He is.
Yeah.
I loved how he said, "You better
no.
never let me win a title in Portland either." Can you imagine just Dame going ham if Portland ever won anything?
Well, you ain't got to worry about that.
All right, big stretch here for Anthony Davis. He may have to carry the Laker franchise for a while, man.
Oh boy, I'm gonna DM you. We'll talk about it.
All right, buddy.
See you, Joel.
All right, man.
That's Joelle Lorenzi, Creighton beat for the Omaha World-Herald.
Stop
Let's just say Donovan Mitchell's mom had something to say about Dame going for 71.
Dude, Rip City. I sat next to a gentleman at Micah's basketball game last week that had on a Rip City hat. And it was, I said, hey, I'm a total stranger. I know I look off the beaten path, man, but that hat is pretty sweet. You just don't see it very much.
I'm going to multitask this weekend. I'm going to watch girls basketball while I'm on the road because I am going to attend the Bucks 76ers game this
You
weekend.
were flirting with, so what sent you over the edge?
I don't really know. I think it's because my fiance, so Ashley's brother, lives in Milwaukee, and I don't get to see him all that much. So I thought maybe kill 2 birds with 1 stone, go up, catch the game that I was looking forward to with some buddies, and also see him at the same time.
Yeah, you're arguably watching 2 of the more taken for granted great
And then
players.
Giannis goes to
2 of them, yeah, that's true. You would have been watching 2 of the more taken for granted great players in the NBA.
Chris Middleton and James Harden.
People sleep on Joel Embiid, how good he is and how consistent his greatness is.
Trust the process.
Man.
Or as Coach Gabinet over in Omaha would say, trust the process.
Oh, I like Gabs. That I'm north of the border, man. We blame Canada. That accent is fantastic. I don't even mess with that dude anymore. I just don't.
You're tired of him. You got tired of Shane.
I cut him
at 7:30 this morning.
I cut him off first segment.
Funny. It's a funny thing.
So I just wonder, like, if Creighton can figure out a way to get Kaluma, Nembhard. I mean, so many of those guys, their game is predicated on dribbling. And you just can't have that many guys dribble all the time and have Creighton be Creighton. They kind of have a little bit of a dilemma.
I said it yesterday with Robbie. They got away from their identity. They could get better feeds inside the Kalkbrenner if they passed more and shifted the defense that way. Hey, we didn't get to talk about pace of play. Let's do that next here on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Anybody see the ending of the Red Sox Braves spring training game over the weekend? You
Yeah, I
guys
think
see that?
I sent that to you, right?
Oh yeah, you did send that to
I
me.
did send that to you.
So it ended in the bottom of the ninth. Braves were rolling, scored 3 to tie it. Bases loaded, 2 out, 3-2 count, and Cal Conley's controller died. He was not alert to the pitcher by the 8-second mark of the pitch timer and was therefore assessed an automatic strike. Game over because they chose not to go to extra innings, which you can do in spring training. Call it a teachable moment? Sure. All involved were warned that there would be no grace period with regard to the new rules. I'm still struggling to figure out, though, what the MLB is accomplishing by doing this, though, because DB, you're a big desired outcome guy.
Yeah.
Right? What's the desired outcome?
Yeah. What is the desired? That is exactly right.
Are
Drew.
you doing more harm or good to baseball fans here? Are you trying to aggravate fans by speeding up the game, or are you trying to gain more fans? And I was going back and forth with this until I started really diving into games this past week, because over the weekend it hit me like a truck, right? The pitch clock, I'm like, look, I get you're speeding up the game. You're saving what seems right now as 30 minutes time by having the pitch timer. I get the idea behind it, but what are you accomplishing? Is the goal to speed up the game? Like, is that really like what you're trying to accomplish? Is your mind right by just saying like this is the goal this year? Is just to speed up games, to make things faster?
Well,
Are you going to gain more fans? You're not going to gain more baseball fans by speeding up the game.
I don't know about that.
You won't. If you're a baseball fan, you would have been a baseball fan from the start.
So
by making a pitcher throw faster, you're not going to get Joe Schmo off the street to say I like baseball.
Yes or no? You're not. I don't think you. I think you're not trying to get Joe's. I don't think you're trying to grab Joe Schmo. I think you're trying to grab the casual fan and make them a permanent fan. So you have to ask the casual fan, what is it that they don't like about the game? And we can argue whether that has any validity or not, or the type of commissioner that baseball has. Because I think ultimately we look at some of these rule changes and we look at where they've come from, and we don't like him as a commissioner. So I think it skews our judgment. But I will say this. There are a lot of, if you're trying to grow the younger audience or bring more eyeballs to baseball, pace of play is an issue. So can we agree on that?
Yeah, sure.
So
I'm not, like I said, I told you from the start of the show.
If pace of play is an issue, how do we help expedite the pace of play? Right? I mean, if people are watching baseball and they're not 50 years old, if they're not me, will they understand why Nomar Garciaparra would fasten, refasten his batting glove 17 times before stepping into the batter's box? Could people gravitate towards that? I don't know. But I do know it's things like that why people looked at pace of play. You look at television windows, you look at inventory, you look at what people want to pay for and what they don't. And I just think they had to take a look at it. And I mean, it's 20 seconds sample time, it's 15 seconds sample time.
I'll tell you what, I'm watching those games.
That I
it
don't know,
seems
but
so rushed. Like you throw the ball back to the pitcher, and it almost seems like they're stressing out about getting set again to throw a pitch.
So you have some guys that are ready to work. Some guys
like
aren't.
Max Scherzer,
but
ready to go fast.
I wonder how much of that, and I don't know because I'd have to see it more, like just to see if I really think it's fast, or is it just because it's fast compared to what I'm watching?
Man, I'm
because I just watched the 7-6. I just watched Dodgers Padres yesterday, and I'm thinking to myself, it didn't really dawn on me that it was rushed until I got it, because the Dodgers threw 6 pitchers, 1 inning apiece. So it's like, or something like that. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but it's like, did it seem fast to me because it was fast, or did it seem fast to me because it's faster than what I'm used to watching? That's like, will you train your eye to adjust?
It's hard for me because that's what I played. Like I played the sport that wasn't timed.
Yeah.
So now you're bringing it. I know what the MLB is accomplishing. You put it perfectly because I asked for the desired outcome, and I think you hit it on the head. You're looking to make the casual fan a permanent fan.
Yep.
But what are you doing to the permanent fans in the meantime?
Yeah, so that's the part. So that's what I don't know, though. So if I'm an old head, do I like the fact that Manny Machado takes 4 minutes to get in the batter's box? I don't think I like that either.
There are aspects of the game that can be sped up, but I don't think it needed to be thrown up like this.
Sped up games is not a bad idea, and at least they have they have a lot of games to figure out what they want to do. But in today's world, with everything being on so much in demand, like everything just being at a touch of your finger, to where I don't know, this game's just taken to I can go to something else. There's a lot of people that want to get in more than one game. With the later games starting over on the West Coast. It's just
baseball's never been a fast game.
Yeah,
and I know what they were trying to get back to. I heard a lot of old heads, as you talked about, because I was listening to national radio when they were taking callers from all over the U.S. And the majority of people I heard was, well, we want the in-game stuff to be faster. And what they mean by that is more hit and runs, more stolen bases, more things like that. So they want more action. That doesn't in turn lead to speed and length of the game, because now it just seems rushed again. Everything just goes back for me to the feeling of being rushed. I watched Colton Wong's at bat the other day in the Brewers game, and I felt like
former Cardinal.
He was swinging the bat, 3 times in 25 seconds.
I think
and I'm like, holy cow, this seems so fast. Everything seems rushed.
Sorry, I know, and it's not my show, but I just want to say one more thing.
It's your show.
I think the worst when they speed up a game is when you're there in person.
Okay, so let me ask you something.
More action in person, I think, isn't a bad idea, though.
Doesn't it sound strange to say out loud, though, that if I've been watching this game for a while, like let's say I'm in my 50s or 60s, and it's obvious baseball needs to get younger. I don't think pace of play bothers those folks in terms of not wanting to expedite it. I think they want quicker games. I think those folks harken back to when guys used to throw 9 innings and you didn't stop games to bring in situational relievers every other inning, or to only throw to 1 batter, which is why they put in a 2-batter minimum. I think if you're talking to older generational baseball guys, I think they want pace. Don't you? It was always played with pace.
It's okay. Pace is good with me, but is it too fast? Really, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to for me.
I wish I knew. I don't have enough. And again, I've only probably watched 8 or 9 preseason games, maybe double digits.
It's a small sample size.
I can't tell if my eye is just not
DB, it's a small sample size, but the average 9-inning game right now is 2 hours and 39 minutes.
Yeah.
That's so fast.
It's fast relative to the slow motion was better than no motion that we were watching before. Because Drew Down, we struggled to integrate international players with Americans to play this game in terms of celebrations. You you get guys that would comment on, well, such and such a player, and I don't the flair, and just play baseball, and I don't need the like the old new guard in baseball had a hard enough time just blending the sport in terms of the no fun police versus staunch purists. So that was one thing. And I think a lot of the sentiment is all lumped together now. It's too much of the other stuff and not enough actual baseball, which I think, and I'm speculating, I think it's driven the bus for pace of play.
For pitching, and this is what I'll end with here. For pitchers out there, the more that they rush, the better chance they have of getting hurt, because they are going to have to speed up themselves. And a lot of times you can't go deep into ball games if your arm's going to, give out on you. You're going to have to not show as much velo right away, because you're not going to be able to keep pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping by the time you get to the 4th through the 6th inning. The first 3 innings, you'll be fine. But as you start to tire, you're going to make them keep going faster and faster to meet that pace. I don't know. Look, it's better to be uncomfortable right now than it is on opening day. So I have a month to kind of settle with this. Like I said, I'm not completely blinded to my personal opinion here. I think pace can be a good thing. I want it to be executed the right way, though. And I just don't know if I feel good about it just yet.
Yeah, I have to hold that thought for the beginning of the season till I see if it's just quick to be quick or just that it's quicker than it normally has been.
Kyle Austin, Michigan State basketball reporter, up next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
On the college basketball regular season. Hurrdat around a screen. Hurrdat, Hauser, open, got it! Another Michigan State three.
I'm sure Michigan State fans would like to forget that game, Shane. So way to bring that back into their head. It's Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. Happy to have you with us as we wind down the show. We do so by going around the Big Ten. We like to do a Big Ten whip, and today's guest is Kyle Austin, Michigan State basketball reporter for M Live at Kyle B. Austin on Twitter. Kyle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, let's start here because Shane brought us in with a Iowa Michigan State basketball clip after blowing the 10-point lead with 40 seconds to play. Michigan State finds themselves at PBA now, an environment that hasn't been easy to play in during the month of February. How quickly have you seen the Spartans put that loss behind them, or do you think it will be haunting them early in this matchup?
You know, that's probably my biggest question coming into this because, you know, this is a team that's had some ups and downs throughout the year, but they're pretty veteran. They're pretty experienced. So I haven't really seen them ride the emotional roller coaster. But at the same time, I've never seen anything like what happened on Saturday at Carver Hawkeye Arena, you know, giving up an 11-point lead with less than a minute to go and being in that locker room afterwards. Those guys were crushed. You know, it felt like an NCAA tournament loss or something like that. Just knowing how close they were to such a big win and how quickly it slipped away, it was kind of a sense of disbelief. So if there's ever a game that could lead to kind of a hangover afterwards, it was that game. So yeah, I do think there's a significant danger of that. I know Tommy's always talked about, you know, working them through that and helping them avoid that. We haven't had a chance to see him or talk to him since then, so I can't really say where they stand right now. But I do think that's a pretty significant concern for Michigan State.
It's interesting as I kind of watched this team go. I remember early in the season and in the preseason, you know, Tyson Walker was a guy that Tom Izzo had to implore to shoot the basketball more, kind of empower. Hey, listen, this is what we need you to do. And I'm not sure whether he's Charlie Bell or Keith Appling or a combination of both or whatever Tyson Walker is in his evolution. But do you remember a time in which you've seen a guard emerge the way that Walker has from his original starting point within an offense?
Not really, no. But I think a lot of that has to do with both how comfortable he's gotten and how his role's changed. When he first got here, they were asking him to be a point guard. And, you know, he was really focused on the pass first, run the offense, don't focus on my scoring. And he was also an up transfer. And he was a guy that had done very well at Northeastern, but was moving up from, you know, the Colonial to the Big Ten, which is a huge jump. And he's pretty undersized, you know, only at 6'2". So he had a lot of things that I think he was trying to figure out. So that's why he was pretty slow last year to get started. I think people could see it in him, but it was just a matter of him getting comfortable and learning kind of how to play in the Big Ten and pick his spots. And then, you know, coming into this year, AJ Hogarth's really emerged. He's been the lead point guard, and that's allowed them to move Tyson Walker off the ball. And now he can focus totally on his scoring. He's pretty much just a shooting guard at this point. And they've asked him to take on that scoring role and be the guy. And he dropped 31 at Iowa. He dropped 30 earlier this year against Purdue. He really has a chance he has the ability, I should say, to heat up better than any player I've seen in a while. And when he starts seeing his shots fall, he can really change the game.
Kyle, we're 2 weeks removed from the tragic shooting that took place on Michigan State's campus. There's no manual on how to respond to a tragedy like that one. In response to the immediate events, though, MSU canceled their game against Minnesota, and now we're hearing it won't be made up. And, I don't know enough about Big Ten rescheduling this late in the season, and I'm sure you've probably read at least deeply into it now because this situation happened, but it was definitely the right move to postpone. But what do you make of the recent announcement to not make it up? I mean, it feels a little unjust and leaves a bad taste in the mouth, does it not?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because you're right. It had to be postponed, but it feels now like Michigan State is getting punished in a way because that was their only game against Minnesota. That's certainly the closest thing to the easiest win on the schedule, so to speak, a game against Minnesota at home. So they're losing that. They have one fewer game than everybody else. And you look at the Big Ten standings, I mean, that half game there, that one game in the win column, could be the difference between several seeds for them and a pretty significant change in the draw in the Big Ten tournament. So Michigan State really wanted it. It was going to be complicated. Several games were going to have to move around. I know Tom Izzo was frustrated that the Big Ten didn't kind of take charge and make it happen, but it's unfortunate that it kind of feels at this point like Michigan State got the short end of it.
Kyle, help me here. I don't know if it's because I think Izzo is just known to make these late February, early March runs, and that's what I'm expecting. But it seems like Michigan State still has more in the tank. I always look at this time of year in terms of teams that have room to grow as they get ready to hit postseason play. Doesn't seem like Michigan State has hit on all cylinders yet. Fact, fiction, scary, if so.
I would agree with that. They struggled with health for a lot of the season. Jaden Akins, who's their one of their starters right now, missed the whole preseason and several games in the fall, so he kind of took a while to get going. And then Malik Hall, who's their sixth man, but really starting caliber forward. He was out at a couple different points, including in January, right after they played Nebraska there. So this is really the first time they've been healthy for several weeks. And, they could have pulled out Saturday. They would have won 4 out of 5, and I think been one of the hottest teams along with Nebraska in the Big Ten. But they're really close, and this is what Tom Izzo keeps saying. He was up there yesterday talking to us and said, we're really this close, their offense has gotten better. And, they're in all these games. They really only got blown out by Purdue on the road. They're in these games, and they're like a lot of teams in the Big Ten. I think they're trying to figure out how to kind of put it all together and how to close. But I would agree, just based on their personnel and the fact that they're fully healthy and winning more games than they were a month ago, I think this team does have the potential to go on a run here late.
Kyle, I don't know how much you pay attention to bracketology, but Michigan State in the East portion of the bracket right now is a 7 currently. But they're with Purdue and K-State as the 1 and 2, opposed to being with Bama and Texas and Houston and Baylor and Kansas and UCLA. And of course, all of that is subject to change. But as of right now, if things ended up like this and Michigan State found themselves in the East, do you prefer that draw as a Michigan State fan opposed to the other 3?
Yeah, I mean, I just look at if you are a 7, who's the 2 that you're going to potentially play. And listen, if you're a 2 seed, you're a good team and you're going to be a tough matchup. But maybe K-State's a little bit easier than some of them. Not a program with not a lot of tournament experience, kind of a little bit of a newcomer on the block. I think you might prefer that to kind of one of the old guard experienced teams. So I think they'd be okay if that was the draw, but I'm sure a lot will change. Michigan State will hope to move up from a 7, but yeah, I'd agree that's probably about where they're at right now.
Kyle, as you're kind of looking at the emotional pendulum, you said we're kind of unsure how it will affect Michigan State with what happened to Iowa City, but based on this team's temperament and kind of that rubber band mentality to snap back, they're going to walk into a pretty hostile environment on senior night. Is your team's mental makeup to embrace that?
I think so. Yeah. They've got, a lot of guys that have done a lot of this before. Joey Hauser's now, he's a senior. He's played in a lot of games. Malik Hall, he's done this a lot. And Tyson Walker, AJ Hogard. So they've got guys that I think kind of have that mentality. Haven't been a great team on the road, which I'm not sure any team really in the Big Ten has, but one at Wisconsin, one at Ohio State, played real close at Illinois, and some other places. So, I think they're going to embrace this. I mean, they certainly are respecting Nebraska and what they've done. They're not taking it lightly. They know it's senior day. They know that they've won 4 in a row at Pinnacle Bank there. So I don't think they're taking it lightly. And I certainly, the flip side of that is they could certainly come out and feel like be motivated by what happened against Iowa, and that wouldn't surprise me either. So it'll be interesting.
Quickly here, any lasting pressure on Michigan State coming into this game, knowing that they're facing a Nebraska team that has kind of put it all together as of late and looks a lot different than the previous matchup?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Tom Izzo said it's basically a whole different scout than before because they've lost 2 starters to injury, obviously, but they've come back and they look even better. And I think that offense, the way that they've been scoring the ball in the month of February, really caught their eye. And Michigan State's been the defense has kind of been shaky a little bit. So I certainly think that Nebraska has their full attention going into this one.
Kyle Austin, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. Hopefully we talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
That's the Michigan State basketball reporter for MLive, Kyle Austin, joining the show to wrap things up here. And a big game again tonight for Nebraska. 8 o'clock is the tip-off, senior night for Sam Griesel, Derek Walker, and Keisei Tominaga will also walk. But as Hoiberg said in his press conference yesterday, there's a lot of different scenarios that could play out for Keisei. Is it going back to Japan, playing professionally? They just don't know yet. But right now, what they do know is he will be walking tonight.
Yeah, and I get it, right? He's exhausted his academic eligibility. His parents are here. And Nebraska's going to have to pony up. I mean, that's the reality of it. Keisei is going to have to decide, hey, do I love the college experience? What's come with this success? And can I have a sustainable income with NIL and international revenue, right? A lot of lawyers work through that. They'll figure that out, but you can make a lot of money playing back home too. His stock is gone through the roof.
Let's just say I don't think Nebraska will shoot
KT.
2 for 16 this time around.
No, need it though. Just to entertain the conversation, get this one tonight.
If you missed anything on the show, check out the podcast, Apple, Spotify. That's Hail Varsity Radio. We'll see you tomorrow on Coffee and Cream.
Collide. It's a song. You and I collide. Do, 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 do.